Hey everybody, Chris Matan here, Real Estate Machine Show, EXP commercial real estate. Right now, I'm going to timestamp this. This is mid-June 2026. World Cup is going on in the United States, Mexico and Canada, primarily in the United States. And I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit the stadiums, the locations of the stadiums, sports teams, moving around, values of sports teams, the Chicago Bears moving out of Illinois, out of Chicago, potentially to Indiana. I don't know if that's going to happen or what the deal is, but and the Browns too, the Cleveland Browns, they're planning on getting out of Cleveland and going into the suburbs of Cleveland, literally like a mile away from the border. But all these things, all these movements, there's so much money that's kind of surrounding these sports teams now. The ownership is making so much money. The values of the teams are so unbelievable. We're talking multiple billions of dollars now that how does it affect commercial real estate? And that used to be, I remember you used to say follow the Walgreens. If the Walgreens opens up, that's where you want to go. Follow the Starbucks. When a Starbucks opens up, that's when you know the gentrification is happening and commercial real estate values will kind of follow and increase and those property owners directly in the areas where those things are happening, benefit from that. A Starbucks and a Walgreens, would bring in other retailers, a grocery store, a Meijer or a Giant Eagle or a Whole Foods or something like that. They drive so much traffic to their locations that all of a sudden there's a synergy and then the space around them becomes more valuable because that's where the traffic is. Is that going to be the same for some of these stadiums? You're talking about Hammond, Indiana, and what it would do to the property values of Northwest Indiana if the Bears build a $3 billion stadium, over there. What would that really do? I mean, it would have an impact one way or another. Obviously, there'd be a lot of traffic. Would that be a seasonal venue? I'd imagine not. I'd imagine that would be a year-round venue, hosting concerts and other games and who knows, maybe they'd have a hockey, one of those winter Christmas hockey outdoor type of deals. Will it be a dome? Will it be a retractable dome? It'll probably be a retractable dome so that it can be used year round more comfortably. So anyway, a $3 billion investment, 3 billion, 2 billion with a B is a massive investment no matter what you're building. And there's going to be impact, positive and negative, wherever that's being built. But, specifically around these events, these major events and these major sports teams, you talk about the World Cup. Uh, when people are coming into these cities, by 40, 50, 60,000 people a day that these cities are may not be used to. And the hotels, the restaurants, the bars, all of that stuff that benefit from that is massive. Now, there's a lot of news and articles and stuff like that that are out on the internet, whether they're true or false or whatever, people canceling rooms, too many rooms, vacancies, no vacancies, surrounding the World Cup. It's anybody's guess what's happening. But I can tell you that if you were sitting or standing outside of that stadium in Dallas yesterday when England played Croatia, and there's got to be 100,000 people around that stadium. It's pretty massive and it's a pretty major event. And, the businesses surrounding that stadium, and you're talking about Cowboy games too. I mean, that's where the Cowboys play. Benefit from those days massively. So will that translate to Hammond, Indiana, for when the Bears move there, if they move there? Will that translate to Brook Park, Ohio, if the Browns end up pulling that off and building a stadium out there? Brook Park, Ohio, it's kind of a sleepy little collar suburb, kind of industrial, cottage, little ranch worker type homes. It's nothing extravagant by any means. But you put a $3 billion stadium with an entertainment district surrounding it with year-round events, will that automatically make, put Brook Park, Ohio on the map? I don't know. I'd be curious to hear what other what's happened with other cities when this has happened, when new stadiums come in, teams move around. Look at what SoFi Stadium. I've never been there, but it's an unbelievable venue. The MetLife Stadium. A lot of talk about MetLife Stadium and then the geographic location and getting to it for all these World Cup fans that are staying in New York. You can only get there by subway, I believe, or shuttles or something like that. There's no walking. You can't walk around there. It's just the stadium kind of on this island, not an island, but for all intents and purposes, it's the only thing out there. And that's going to be a totally different experience than something like, say, what Dallas has or what Houston has or SoFi Stadium or something like that. I don't know. I haven't been to any of these stadiums. I'm going to Toronto. I'm excited about that to watch Croatia play Panama. And, Toronto, for the sake of the World Cup, that stadium is the smallest of all the venues. It's really a 30,000 people capacity stadium. I understand they're bringing in, another 15,000 seats of bleachers or whatnot. They're kind of adding on to it to make it 45,000, but it's not 80. So it'll be a really intimate, kind of nice way to watch a soccer match. And I'm really kind of getting excited about it. And, I know for a fact that, that Toronto is benefiting from all the people that are coming. I think they get 6 or 8 games or something like that across the entire tournament. But what a huge boost. Yet Chicago decided for their own reasons not to host a game. What better city is there than the city of Chicago to host a World Cup game? And they decided that it would cost them too much. Now, the Chicago government is a mess to begin with on many levels. I'm not going to get into that. I really don't even have an opinion about it anymore. But to to actually give up the opportunity to host a World Cup, multiple World Cup games. I mean, they could have got into semifinals, um, and drew huge amounts of people to the city from all over the world and just boost the city's image more so than it already is. I mean, the city of Chicago is an unbelievable city. Yeah, there's a lot of crime, there's a lot of bad reporting about that stuff. It's changed a lot, but it's still an absolute world-class, beautiful city. And everybody, if they had a chance in the world to visit that city at least once, it would be worth it. It would be absolutely worth it. And what greater stage of the world for the World Cup to kind of show off that city. And they decided that it was not in their interest to do it. I guess it's not in their interest to fight for the Bears either. So I don't know what the city's up to, but everybody does something for a reason, and I'm sure they have their own reasons why they're doing it. But anyway, this was just kind of just a conversation that I wanted to have about sports teams and stadiums and venues and kind of how it affects real estate and commercial real estate, traffic patterns, occupancy, vacancy, rental rates. It all rolls in, everything rolls into each other. You add in the component of construction and job creation, and all of a sudden you've got some really interesting dynamics happening with the movement and the growth of all these sports teams. I'd be really curious to see what people put in the comments on this. Feel free to do so. We'll catch you next time on the Real Estate Machine Show. Have a great day, everybody.